Wireless LAN Professionals Podcast, episode 163.
You can do everything right and still get burned, right? You can do all the investment in tools and training and people, everything that we all try to do in our jobs, hopefully, day in and day out, try to hit every possible, methodology of doing things the right way. That's what we all strive to do. But even after you've done everything right, this may be the result, right?
Wireless LAN Professionals is a place to educate, inform, encourage, and entertain those involved in wireless LANs. This Wireless LAN Professionals podcast is an audio manifestation of these goals. Our host is a wireless LAN veteran, consultant, designer, and teacher, Keith Parsons. And now, the podcast for wireless LAN professionals by wireless LAN professionals.
We've been having a section talking about various resources that we have in the WM Pros notebook. On this one, I'm just going to add a couple of the things that I carry with me, not in the notebook, and maybe we'll be adding them in a future notebook. This one is an iPerf3 user documentation. Yeah, I can always go in and hit a man page or put a / question mark to find out what the different command lines options are, but they're not really descriptive, and I kind of many times forget what's the option that I'm going to put behind some / what's the -I mean when you're doing it here. The some that are general, some are client specific, and some are server specific. And so we put together a iPerf3 user documentation laminated card, and we'll include it at both a PDF and a JPEG in the show notes along with when this is published. But thinking as you find things in your world like this, documentation, hey, share them with others. We'll gladly take them and post them on the website and do a little podcast bit about them. All of us, need resource documents to support what we're doing. I had a teacher, I think he taught chemistry or something in 8th grade. No, actually he taught history in 8th grade. And he came in the first day of class and said, I will pass anyone with a full A, and you don't even have to attend class if you can ask me a question that I don't know the answer to. And then he paused and said, but you need to give me 24 hours to come up with the answer. Now today, that would be silly. Even my grandkids are little. They say, well, just Google it. But back then there was no Google, and he would, no matter what the question is, he would come back the next day with an answer. He loved going to the library and doing research. And what he was trying to prove to us was we don't need to know everything. What you just need to know is where to go get the information. And so if we, rather than clutter your brain knowing that the $M is to set the maximum TCP segment size on an iPerf command line, I just keep it on a document that we have. It's a little laminated card that I keep with me. And thus, with these laminated cards, I can carry with me very quickly the information I need and not keep my mind cluttered. So if you want, go ahead and download and look at the iPerf3 user documentation. Thanks.
10 Talks.
I'm going to spend 10 minutes talking about code bugs and the consequences they have. These are my underwriters. You may have seen my story on the History Channel. The classic story of the great American CWNE who took on too many bugs. I look good. Seriously though, this presentation kind of comes from 15 years of putting up what I'm about to rant about. It's a matter of, to me, it's all about credibility. Your reputation is everything, both personally and professionally. And code bugs, I'm about to make the point, kind of, undermine your reputation. And that I really have a problem with. You can do everything right and still get burned, right? You can do all the investment in tools and training and people, everything that we all try to do in our jobs, hopefully, day in and day out, try to hit every possible, methodology of doing things the right way. That's what we all strive to do. But even after you've done everything right, this may be the result, right? Is this ringing familiar at all? To me, the underlying code is one part of the equation we have very little control over. I'm not just talking about controllers or NMS or APs, it's also client operating systems and drivers and such. It's one area we really don't have control over. And I have no doubt that some of you are thinking, well, I put everything in the lab and I test and you must not test, and this is more your problem than the vendor. My problem with that is that, some bugs only come out at scale. You can't test for everything. And for the money that you spend on a lot of this stuff, you shouldn't have to do the QAing for the vendor. I feel that way in my heart of hearts. There's only so much that you can do. Can I get a witness? Thank you. Some things you really can't practically test. Yes, absolutely, you want to do what you can in that regard. But some things you just can't do. You can't put 10 or 20,000 clients on a test environment, or at least I can. I certainly have no idea how I might go about doing that. I can do the obvious, and we do that before we roll out code of almost every sort, except for the clients. I certainly live in a BYOD world. I cannot dictate what the clients bring and what their code is. I can only control the infrastructure, and even there, again, I can only go so far with my testing. The red bullet is really important as wireless gets more pervasive, as networking gets more pervasive, as controllers get bigger, and more eggs end up in our baskets. When code spins out, the blast zone gets bigger, right? The stakes are getting higher. And there on the bottom of the slide, I say, why are we not supposed to trust what gets published to the support sites? I have a problem with going and seeing a bunch of things listed in the drop-down, and to me, they're all valid, but you're supposed to play roulette and pick one that hopefully works. It just isn't right. The consequences, reputational damage. Again, I kind of let off with that, and it's not just you, the wireless LAN doer. This stuff makes your boss look bad. Makes your boss look bad. It makes your boss's boss look bad. The network starts getting blamed for everything. Certainly, it calls your vendor's credibility into question. And depending on where you sit in your food chain and what kind of organization you are, it can really make the whole company or group look bad. And the questions that get asked at the bottom, did we pick the wrong solution? Did we pick the wrong people to run that solution? Everything starts to feel like a network problem, and everything starts to feel like it's related to that bad code. Then there's the wasted time factor. This is just a glimpse of my last year. I spent documented over 400 man-hours just chasing code bugs. And then there was a bigger group working with me to try to debug some of this stuff. And then you can see the byproducts, the fallout of that. We had projects that we had to put off because we were chasing code bugs. We had to disable some features that we paid good money for because of code bugs. It certainly doesn't help the relationships with the vendors. It's really hard to become a reference account when you feel like you're living in this kind of ugly world of, what are they giving us that I have no choice but to put out? And I have experienced paranoia. I'm afraid to do anything. The devil and maybe the next round is going to be even worse. So, after all that, what is the answer? I don't know. I just wanted to come up and bitch. So thank you. I feel a lot better, and I thank you for helping me through that. The attempts to keep the vendor honest, I'm sure all of you can kind of, maybe or most of you can search within yourselves and say, yeah, I called and I kind of went off on somebody that didn't make the world, they're just living in it, and I'm kind of putting it all on him or her, and that's not right. Really easy to have these situations devolve into that. I would say, do your best to escalate it to not VP, no offense to VP, but the vice president, not our VP, but the vice president of whatever company you're dealing with. product managers, anybody that you can get to, don't put up with it. I've had fairly good success with a number of companies taking my complaints there. It doesn't feel good. It's never fun to be confrontational, but I would say advocate for yourself and for your end users. If you're going to go the route of surgically shaming, Twitter, etc., be credible. The last thing you want to do is look like an idiot for bringing up something that really is your fault at the end of the day. So, if you're going to do that, by all means do it. That's part of what makes social media, in my opinion, worth participating in. It gives you a channel that you never had before to get some of your angst out and maybe get results. And then I know it's easier said than done, but ultimately, you may have no choice but to change vendors. And again, far easier said than done, especially as you scale up bigger. So, at the end of all of this, my final words, it ain't innovation if it sucks. You can get flooded with features that look great on paper. If they don't work, or they cause the features that you need to spin out of control, it's not innovation. At least it's not my definition of innovation. I come from a place where stability is everything. If I can't give my vendor, or if I can't give my customers, my end users, stability, there's a problem in my world. So I'm all into features, but the features can't come at the expense of stability. I don't know if this is just a generational thing, but it really feels like we're kind of living in an age of what I'm calling crowdsourced QA testing. Write it quick, get it out the door, wait for the cries, wait for the anguish and all of that, and that's how you tell whether you've done a good job with your code. I don't understand that. I don't think it's always been that way, but again, maybe that's just my own perspective. I think the vendors really need to do a better job with QA, and maybe I'd like to see everybody take a year off of development and fix the bugs. I mean, that's my... I also truly think the third bullet, some of the companies that are out there, I think they're leading the market in spite of themselves, not because they're doing a really bang-up job with their code. Again, my own, surliness on the topic. And finally, my prayer, my begging to the industry, whatever you want to call it, it just has to get better. It just can't sustain the way it is. That's all I got.
Let's get to know our colleagues and friends with a shared passion for Wi-Fi. It's time to search Who Is.
Mark, welcome to the show, man. Thank you for being here, sir. How are you?
I'm doing fine. How are you doing today?
Good. I'm doing great, in fact. So introduce yourself for those who don't know you. Tell us a little bit about yourself, kind of what you're doing in Wi-Fi these days. Where are you? And yeah, just kind of give us the story.
I am Mark Raats. I'm living in the Netherlands. I'm working there as a wireless consultant for a company called Jouwworks. I'm working there now 1.5 years, and I'm working as a contractor there. So they send me out to other companies, but as well I'm heavily involved in the products for the company itself, like selling the product Wi-Fi as a service. And so I'm working on that as well. And in my free time, I'm married, have a son, and Wi-Fi is there my passion as well. So I guess my wife knows a lot about that as well nowadays. And yesterday I was announced to be number 290 for my CWNE. So a big accomplishment as well. Thanks.
Very cool. Very cool. So you said 290, 290?
Yeah, 290, yes.
Congratulations. CWNE. Well, since that's fresh in your mind, kind of tell us a little bit about your journey there. What was that like for you? What was your process?
The journey started around 3 years ago when I was working for a bank in the Netherlands, and I was getting there some Wi-Fi projects, and this guy introduced me to the CWNP course,
Okay.
I think I had for a half year my CCNA wireless, but that was more like how Cisco works. And man, my eyes went open. I thought I knew a lot about Wi-Fi. I had my CCNA, and I thought I'm rocking the world, but no. I started doing with my CWNA.
Scratching the surface.
Yeah, I started my CWNA with Ronald van Kleunen in the Netherlands, and he was like my mentor and training during my whole studies to this point. So yeah, I think this is one of the great certification. You learn a lot. You learn like wireless, and you don't learn how vendors implement it. So I think that's the strength about that, and I'm very happy to learn and knew about this track about Wi-Fi vendor neutral certificates.
So you said how long was it from getting introduced to CWNP program to now with your CWNE? What was that time length you said?
I think I started in 2016.
Okay. So you jumped right in there and
Yes, I was working with Wi-Fi before that, but that was like more like Cisco based. But at the moment that I knew about it, this track, I
yeah.
started directly, and well, I had my experience, but it was pretty tough, that for sure, because there was a lot of theory knowledge.
Yeah. Talk to me about the different certifications along the way. What was most difficult to you? Which one did you have the most struggle with, you think?
I would think saying design in one way,
Design?
yeah, because it's like your view. This design is pretty. It's like it's an opinion, and you of course you have best practices, but everybody does design differently. And to see what is CWMP looking for was hard to going through there. To find out what the right like what they want to hear. But what you see in the field designs, you can do if you do ask 5 people, you get 6, 7 different designs.
Yeah.
So and everybody is CWNE in that case, and then so they had the same exam and the same criteria to pass that exam, but still you have different types of answers. So that was making it hard a little bit to see like what do they want to know, what is the right answer, because in my opinion, there's not really a right answer to a design.
hmm
So that made that one a little bit harder than I was expecting, because I thought design I will just do that very easily.
Yeah, it seems pretty straightforward on the surface, but you get
Correct.
in there and figuring out what they're asking you to learn. So what would be some maybe advice someone who's looking at design right now? What encouragement or advice would you give them?
I would do a lot of practice and like knowing different type of verticals, like how it goes in a hospitality or in hospital or in educations. So you have an idea how every different type of vertical works, and that helps you also to understand those environments and um, what kind of best practices you can use in like
The different
type of
applications.
yeah
Yeah.
the type of case application that will be used, or like in hotel you have like different type of rooms.
Yeah.
You will see a lot of time that the X points are on the hallways, and that's what you don't want, because that's what in the book say, don't deploy X point in the hallway. And also hotel, you always see them in the hallway because there's a reason for it. So knowing those reasons, knowing why other verticals does it differently, helps to understand and help to prepare for the exam for sure.
Yeah. So the more different areas you can get into, maybe practice or go along with someone who's doing that and help and get that real world
Yeah.
experience. What's something that you really maybe took away from the design portion when you went for that certification? What's something that really obviously it was a challenge, but what's something that you took away with you that you apply now in your career?
That the questions that you need to ask before you start to create not really to create the requirements, but to put the requirements together is like mandatory and very important. And the most time they are going very easily over that, or it's done by someone else. And if it's done by someone else, that's fine too. But then you need to be for sure some meeting between you and the other guy, and sure that you be on the same page.
So before you do any actual technical design, there's a lot of communication, a lot of
Yes.
actually talking to people and understanding what their real needs are. So that seems like to be a big percentage of what
Yeah.
design
And
is.
in some companies, that is done by, for example, a salesperson,
hmm
and you do not know everything to ask in the DP agreed of the question. So they just said, yeah, we need Wi-Fi. Okay, great. And then like, but what kind of application? So if they don't know the answers, you need to go after that. And then the customer's like, but I already gave my requirements. So why are you coming back and asking me more questions?
Yeah, because we want to do it right.
Correct.
So out of the process, any of the certifications are in that process something that was surprisingly easier or that you did quicker than maybe you thought you might?
No, not really. They were all like hard in some case. I think the security was the easiest because that was straightforward. Just
Okay.
KRE, you just need to know it, and that was like just and the other things could be like different type of views can change the question.
How on the CWNE process, what stood out as something that was maybe more difficult or what was the challenge in that for you?
The first one, the first exam,
No, the final to get the CWNE, the expert
time
time.
to
Just
write the essays because and to put you need also have some publication. So I did a webinar for the Wiseman Association, so that need to be planned. So it was a lot of time and patience.
so what would you encourage someone going through that process?
Don't um, don't forget your end goal.
Keep
Like
that
keep the end goal. Like, I know people are who are not really good in writing essays and just postpone it, or and you need to set a date, you need to set a time, you need to set okay, today I'm gonna write about an essay, and hopefully you get the time, you not get distracted by everything around, especially if
like
you have a family
yeah,
and,
have
and
that clear
kids.
picture in mind.
Yeah,
Yeah. If it doesn't become a priority, it's just gonna be something far off,
far
something that
off.
you're
Yeah.
going to do. Why was it important to you to get the CWNE?
I think this helped me to be recognized for what I want. Like my Wi-Fi is for me really a passion, and this is like the ultimate goal of a Wi-Fi engineer or consultant. They see that this is the highest possible certificate that you can get, and I always strive for challenge, and that was this for sure. And it's also helping me like be a part of a small group, but also with this certificate, I can show the customers where I work for that I at least know what I'm talking about a little bit.
So what's kind of next for you now?
I want to now spread out to multiple vendors. I had my CCNA for Cisco, but I don't want to be Cisco minded. You have Aruba, you have Ruckus, you have multiple vendors, and I want to know at least the basics of those vendors and maybe some more as well. But at least that I know if I'm sitting for the first time in the front of an interface from Ruckus, that I know where to go to instead of first need to Google.
Yeah. So just kind of broadening your
Yeah, and also get more into security. Like security is a big issue, of at least a big team for wireless. And nowadays, Internet of Things, everything needs to be more secure, but the interface are getting easier. So also security. So I want to branch out a little bit to other areas that is close to wireless, like security and vendors.
You mentioned that you are also kind of delving into the sales process with your company. What's that like? What does that involve? What's that look like for you?
Communication skills, know what you're talking about, but also think on a different level.
What would you say is different?
More looking to like as an engineer, you're more like in the technical, like configuring things and locking yourself up in a room sometimes. Now you need to be outgoing, try to see the prospects, where can I sell things. So those things you have need an extra eye for that,
Yeah.
and not everybody is able to do that because, like I said, they normally say you are a nerd, and nerds don't look to the outside of the world.
You're in your cave doing what you love. You don't want no
No,
time for these people.
no windows, one door in your room,
Yeah.
and
You're Gollum in your cave.
yeah. So
That's great.
you need to get out and you need to talk to other people, and I like that about it. Like I started with my bachelor in programming,
Okay.
but after a half year, I knew like, okay, I'm not for sure not a programmer. I don't want to be 40 hours behind my screen and just typing codes. No.
So you needed a little bit of that diversity.
Yeah.
So Cool. What's happening in the wireless LAN industry that you're excited about these days? Anything on the horizon that you're looking forward to?
I'm a member of the Wireless LAN Association, and I really like what they are doing, and I'm really looking forward to build the Wireless LAN Association to a known and recognized organization that can have influence in the Wi-Fi industry.
And what are some of the things that are exciting that is giving you hope with the WLA?
They are working on writing the books.
Okay.
The suite process. I mean, I can dive into details,
Yeah.
but I don't really want to do that here. But I see that there's need for it. Like I said, people have an idea how it works, but there's not really a framework. From where do I start? Which question can I ask? How do I design a great Wi-Fi? So we are building that framework, and I think that is needed in the industry. And if we can work with different type of professionals in this organization, we can set something great, and hopefully that will be recognized. And my ultimate goal will be that it will be used by people all over the world.
Very cool. So, favorite piece of equipment you're using these days? What's your go-to favorite Wi-Fi tool?
I love Ekahau. I don't really have the Sidekick yet. That's ordered, so hopefully we get that very soon. So that's the equipment that I'm gonna use a lot of use. I don't really. I mean, Ekahau is the thing that I use the most time, and I think that's really a great tool that you can do like planning, surveying. Just like you can do a lot. So I think that will be one of my favorite tools.
Very cool. So, how can people connect with you or follow you if they want to learn more about what you're up to?
Twitter. You can follow me on Twitter at Mark Raats Wi-Fi. I'm on Slack, email, so phone. I'm reached by many channels.
All right, so let's leave with some advice, encouragement you would give to maybe someone starting out in their wireless LAN engineer career, or maybe they feel stuck or they're not quite sure where to go next. What encouragement would you give them?
Ask. Like if you have problems, if you are think there's a big wall in between you and your goal, ask the people around. Wi-Fi is, in my opinion, one of the greatest community there is. Everybody's helpful. So if you have a question, reach out to the professionals in the industry, and they will put you back on track.
All right, you heard it here first, people. Mark Raats, CWNE number
290.
290 says ask. Mark, appreciate your time, sir. Thank you so much for sharing with us.
No problem at all.
All right, appreciate it.
Thank you for joining us for another episode of the Wireless LAN Professionals Podcast, the podcast for wireless LAN professionals by wireless LAN professionals. Be sure to follow us on Twitter at Wireless LAN Pros for all the latest news and updates, and also connect directly with Keith on Twitter at Keith R. Parsons. Head over to www.wlanpros.com for this episode's show notes, as well as the latest in all things Wi-Fi.